Okay, so the thing that we had left off with, and I want to make sure that I kind of landed the plane, because we had just tiptoed into this thing about personal power. What I think is important to understand is this personal power idea is the ability to have impact. I mentioned last time that one of the early originators in psychoanalysis after Freud was a lady by the name of Karen Horney, and she identifies kind of three sources of strategies in relationship, and that's power over, power against, and power away. And so what we have to remember here is that power is unlimited. It is not a zero-sum game. So if somebody takes power, it doesn't mean you have none. And we tend to look at it in kind of all or nothing terms to get at it. So it can be created. One of the things that I think is embedded in here, or even kind of hidden, is this is the very basis on with the word empower. To empower somebody is to enable them to embrace the personal power that is theirs. A lot of times we talk about a variety of topics, whatever that might be, and we disempower ourselves because we feel so helpless and powerless over it. And so we always do the all or nothing kind of thing about this. And some of the biggest challenges even in counseling is to make people aware of the choice that they have. And probably one of the first and foremost choices they have is to choose what they want, consistent with what they want. Not choose according to obligation, not choose according to keeping the other person happy, nothing like that. It's choosing because that's what I want. Now, the thing is that what really muddies the water here is, even in our relationship with God, is what does God want of me, and what motivation does he want in me toward him? And I don't think we have to really look very far to kind of understand that. Because what do you want in relation to somebody toward you? I think we would all say, I want somebody who wants to be with me, who desires to be with me, who enjoys my company. And if we feel that in a very broken sort of way, how much more does God feel that? I mean, one of the interesting things here that I think we can point out is that we can give the Sunday school answer, why did Jesus come? And to save us, but to save us from what? And one way to look at this is he came to save us from being enslaved so that we don't have an answer to anything. See, if I'm not enslaved, then I can go where I want. I can choose what I want. And that same thing is true in our relationship with God. What does he desire? He desires our motivation to be love toward him, not obligation. That cheapens it. It cheapens it. And I would go so far as to say, he doesn't want your obligation. He wants your heart and your love. That's what he wants. So if I can't necessarily give it for whatever the reason is, then let's just start with being honest. Let's just start with being honest. And that scares the crap out of us, because we're afraid that if I'm honest, then hellfire and brimstone is going to happen. So what's my image and view of God? In a lot of cases, you can look at all throughout Jesus' ministry, and there were some people that were actually honest enough to say, thanks, but no thanks. They were. Think of the rich young ruler on the road. He came looking to justify himself, said, I've kept all the commandments and everything else, and Jesus throws out, yes, but give everything you own to the poor and follow me. And what does he do? He walks away. And Jesus doesn't go running after him. Say, wait, let me change the term so you'll stay a disciple of mine. No, he didn't. He let him walk away. And so the power of our choices are found in our willingness to choose. The power of our choices are. Not the fact or the abstraction that I have a choice to make. It's way, way more than that. And that same thing is true, is how do we begin to convert our motivation toward God from obligation to love? And that is a really, really bumpy process. It is not smooth. It is not easy. And sometimes people do the all or nothing thing and say, fine, if that's the way it's going to be, I can't have love for a deity or a divinity like that, so I'm out. And quite honestly, I think God said, well, thank you, but it's about time you were honest. And I think there's a lot of us that we hate the Pharisees for one main reason. They're just like us. We want to make an appearance rather than deal with the reality. And so I don't think, I'm sure it's not accidental that Jesus chose people that had absolutely no power. They were the cast-offs, his disciples. And that's exactly what was so scandalous to the people in power, is that he called to be his disciples people that had none. Fishermen? Teenagers? Yeah, there's a lot of this that I think we have to understand. So how do we empower one another? It's not necessarily saying, go get him, Tiger, you can do it. As much as it is giving people the right to choose, and even choose wrongly. And we don't like that option. I don't mind letting people choose, as long as they choose the way they should. And that's very much a part of this. So when we talk about this whole consciousness, choice, and change, when shame hits, we really usually, you might be getting more aware than most when it hits. What it feels like, how do I experience it, the confusion, fear, anger, jealousy, all of that is part of it. It tips it off, its presence. It enters the room, and I sense its presence. And what happens is when that happens, I am thrown into crisis mode, and I quit evaluating it. I quit thinking, even. And as is pointed out here, brain research says that this state that we're in is so threatening that we suspend the neocortex from thinking, and we go straight to the amygdala and all of the reactions and everything else. So even though I may not have a physical manifestation of fight, flight, or freeze, internally I do. I see the evidence that is there. So it's very much a part of the landscape, and why we have to keep talking about why power is so important. Now, the one thing I will say to you, you guys, most of you, if not all of you, have heard me say this before: trust and what? Can't coexist.
Control.
Trust and control can't coexist. Well, substitute in power for control. And trust and control cannot coexist with power either, because I give up something in my own power to trust someone else. I do. That's why, we have people that we hear, or we say it, and it's like, I don't do vulnerability. Why? Because I don't like losing control, bottom line. Or, bottom line, I don't like feeling like I'm losing power. Interesting little sidelight to that is a lot, you don't see it as much today. It used to be the case, but years ago, legend had it that all of the sheikhs in Saudi Arabia, the kingpins of the society at the time, would often, and I can verify this from seeing a variety of other dictators and things that have kind of traipsed their way through the Middle East, is they made an effort all the time to wear sunglasses. You know why? Very good, Lane.
So
I'm glad we've gone beyond the desert parameters. No, if you look, yeah.
So people couldn't see where they were looking.
Yeah, Their eyes give away what they like.
Secret Service does it too.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know what your eyes do when you like something, right?
Okay.
They dilate. They dilate. So they would wear glasses so the people that were under them could not determine what they liked and didn't like. Now that has even longer roots because the sheikhs, and we have some of the elements in the Old Testament about the kings, is they had the queen, and it was with the queen that they shared power, and then they had something else. I mean, Solomon had 900 of them. Concubines. And what kind of women were they in these terms? I don't want to hear about their character. But what in these terms, why were they in that group?
They were powerless.
They were completely powerless. They could not mount any threat against the king's power. The queen could. And the king never shared intimacy with the queen. He only shared sexual intimacy with women that were of such low status that they could not mount any attack on his power. That still holds true in a lot of places. The sunglasses thing is just an outward expression of I want to maintain power over other people so they can't know what I'm thinking. We just get more sophisticated. We just develop a lovely stained glass to hide behind. So,
I knew you were going to say something about the stained glass right there.
So, yeah, I'm very predictable. This is my second time talking about this today. So, let me give you, you know what caveat emptor is? Anybody know what that means? That's right, the business major speaks. Let the buyer beware, okay? You go out and buy something, caveat emptor. You've got to know who you're selling it to, or who's selling it to you, I should say. So, I have one for the next 16 slides, okay? It's right here. The material you're about to hear is extremely intrusive. So continue at your own risk. See you, Greta. Okay, yeah, I'm just warning you. Now, let me show you this clip. You guys are familiar with the movie trilogy, The Matrix?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Huh?
I love that movie. First one.
Yeah, well, huh? Y'all know how old it is?
Very. Older than us.
Yeah, that's safe. It's 24 years old. Now, the thing that's remarkable about this is if you think about the theme in this movie, is that the main characters are living in the Matrix. And they realize it's not really real. It's digital, but they're living within it. And the main character, Keanu Reeves, Neo, is saved, quote unquote, saved from it. And what I wanted to capture for you is the conversation between Neo and Morpheus when they first meet. Yeah.
Could this be equated to like the Truman Show? Because I've actually seen that, just so I can have it.
You haven't seen The Matrix?
Not really. Not really. It's close because, I mean, he was inserted into a artificial environment. But he was singled out for that. The Matrix is everybody's in it. And nobody knows they're in it.
What about, have you watched the movie Don't Worry, Darling?
No.
Yes. Yeah. Very similar concept, except like everyone's in the simulation.
I can go there.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Thanks, Carolyn. So, and this is what I want you to be thinking about. Think of the Matrix as the culture of shame that you all been a part of. And Morpheus offers to Neo 2 pills, right? And pay attention to how he frames that for him. It has it has some truly biblical overtones to it in a lot of ways. Now, I would never attribute that to the Wachowski brothers, who are now the Wachowski sisters.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. But if you think through the names here, new Neo, Morpheus is the god of what? Anybody know?
Change.
Huh?
Change.
Nope. Sleep. That's where the drug morphine got its name. So Morpheus is the guy who is looking for, quote unquote, the one. And he is convinced that Neo, the new order, if you will, is the one to do that. So here's the conversation, and see what you catch in light of that, and then we'll keep moving.
This is it? Let me give you one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
At last. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No. The honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No,
Why not?
because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix?
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me. Hey, Pac. Are we online?
Almost.
Time is always against us. Please, take a seat there.
Were you gonna say something?
No, it was just a high five
Oh.
to Brian.
Okay. Well, don't do that. Okay, so let's walk through a few of these. First one, like we did with the safe people, like we did with boundaries, no one person is ever one thing, ever. But the first group is the guilt spreaders. And what does that mean? They espouse this equation, one wrong act equals one bad person. And this is the basis of what we've been talking about how shame is built into kind of who we believe we are. And so I did, therefore I am, and one lie and you become a liar. I cannot tell you anymore how many times I've heard from parents coming in to see a counselor, pushing their kid in the door and saying, my child's a liar, fix it. And then I begin to untangle the story, and what begins to unfold is the child did lie, but now their identity is that behavior. They're a liar. Not that this child lied, was scared, whatever the reasons, but it doesn't really matter. So the backdrop here with guilt spreaders is I do one thing and it spreads out everywhere into who I am, how I see myself, everything about it. And the thing is it spreads out not only within me. I mean, if you watch that movie any further, Neo's sure that he's getting overtaken by the Matrix. But it not only spreads within me, but then it also spreads into my relationships. So somebody who's nice and gives me a compliment, and I do everything I can to dodge it. Why? What is the belief? I'm not worthy of that. And so I'll dismiss it or say, and a lot of times we're too polite to say, well, you're lying to me. But we act like they're lying to us, essentially. If you knew me the way I know me, you wouldn't be saying that. So therefore, what you say is patronizing, is not really sincere. And so that's the first one. Second one is the overly responsible. They feel as if they, not God, have the whole world in their hands. So change the title to the song. And they feel that weight. They literally feel that weight. And they have taken on everything. So everything that goes badly in the lives of people around them is a reflection of their lack of worth and their lack of responsibility for saving them. And so there is this distinct if only thing going on in their heads. A lot of times these folks lapse into the Messiah complex. They're trying to save people from themselves. And so they take everything on. And oftentimes there's a spiritualized version of this, and that is if I don't share, then they'll go to hell and it'll be on my shoulders. So the overly responsible do not have limits to what they are responsible for and what they're not. And they're responsible for everything in a lot of ways. And if you were to even suggest to them the possibility that it isn't their responsibility, in a lot of cases they end up pulling out all sorts of chapter and verse at you about, well, this is the only Christian thing to do after all. And so how can you fight it? Well, you can't. Because they have a well-designed defense system against looking at how grandiose they see themselves. which is really what it comes down to, is that. So other parts of this is these people that are overly responsible, they feel like they are always too much for people. They can't believe that only God is the one that has the world in his hands. They really don't trust him to act as they think he should, and therefore create their own sense of urgency and responsibility. And so there's a variety of language that we use around this. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't show my emotions because it's always too much for people. And so now they're taking care of other people because they don't want to inflict themselves on them. And so there's this chronic sense of, there's just too much in the world for me to take on. And that doesn't stop them from trying, but it is very much a part of the landscape of how they interact with people and how they interact with problems in the world and all this. In a lot of cases, you could say, well, it motivates some really good behavior. I mean, a lot of people that are activists, like in their approach to things, have this same thing. Like, if I don't do it, then nobody will. But it doesn't display much trust of what God's up to in the larger world to move people toward helping a variety of people. And so there's a danger that we play with here in terms of our sense of responsibility versus God's level of responsibility. Now, if I say that, a lot of times they'll say, well, then you just are telling me that I should just do nothing at all. See, it's an argument from the extreme. And that's how they end up staying where they are without changing. The next one is the obsessive moralizers. Everything is in black and white and is in the moral plane. Everything. Now, they have very myopic vision, so they don't really know that. They see the things that they see as morally wrong as justified. So life is never to be experienced. It must always be measured, weighed, evaluated to see if it's morally sound. And
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Shut up, Siri.
That's a new one.
The thing is these folks tend to be really very serious. They tend to be very serious. I know, you don't bait me. Because everything has to be evaluated and known and all of that. It really does. And so it's hard to have any humor or fun because everything is on a moral plane. It's evaluated that way. So they feel the same, and this is key, when they violate a custom, a social convention, as when they violate some moral standard. And it's hard to be around them in a lot of ways because everything goes through that lens for them. And so it's a moral decision. On pretty much anything. And they usually talk, their language betrays an all or nothing black and white mentality about, this is just wrong. Or things are unacceptable. They talk in very problematic terms, I think, in terms of, well, this is just unacceptable. It's like, well, no, it's not unacceptable. You don't like it, but it's not unacceptable. It depends on what we're talking about here. So not everything is that way, but they sure see it that way, and they sense it that way. And that's really how they come at it. So the obsessive moralizers are another kind of group of people. It's very easy to find these folks, particularly in Christian settings. There's a lot of that goes on into this, and I think actually in some respects, it is a artificial spirituality, is what it is. And a lot of times it's covering up something that they don't want to actually talk about. So, next one, compulsive comparers. forever comparing against someone usually always more successful than they are. Always. That's the nature of comparison. Is we compare against somebody that's higher up or better than us or a bit higher status. And generally the way that they look at things is anyone else's success is a reflection of their failure. Again, go back to the thing we talked about with personal power. It's like it's all or nothing proposition. If you succeed, then I'm failing. And it's embedded in really how they see life and understand it. The heart of the person is the heart of envy. And envy is defined as good, as what I do not, good is defined as what I do not possess, and it hates the good that it has. That's what envy is. And so whatever I don't have, that's good. Whatever I do have is not good. And so we cast our eye about trying to look for something to move toward. And we can say, well, it motivates me to be better and to do better and to have more, toys and everything else for that matter. But envy is at the heart of this. And we have to understand really why that is. See, in a lot of cases, the relationships these folks have is always measuring against somebody else in some way or another. And that's quite, the dirty little secret here is in the academy, this happens all the time, particularly amongst faculty, as they are measuring themselves against other faculty. How many research articles have people done? How many books have they written? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's always that way. It's like, I may have written 5, but you wrote 10, so therefore you've got it better than me and you've done better than me. It's like, forget about character here. It's just about production. So, compulsive comparers. Another one, which I'm sure we'll find a few lying around here at CCU, is approval addicts. And they cannot approve of themselves unless there's enough people who approve of them. Of course, this number is always increasing. If I get 5, I need 10. If I get 10, I need 100. If I have 100, I need 1,000. And they're always trolling or fishing for approval. Now, that shows you what their abiding belief is. And that is, I'm not worthy of approval. So I'm going to fish it out of people. They don't do that openly. But sometimes you'll get a feeling now and again that people are fishing for something from you. And that would be a scenario like this. So the absence of approval equals disapproval. And I can tell you, I have wasted too many years of my life in this one in particular. Because it's like that the notoriety or the celebrity is never enough. It literally is, a facade. And while we say we know that that's true, that doesn't stop us from continuing to pursue it. And so embedded in a lot of us is this approval addict. We want somebody to tell us we're okay. Because if we tell us that's not enough. I've got to have somebody outside of me to say that to me for it to be legit. And again, whether we like it or not, the status of the person who's saying it has power as well. One of your peers versus a professor or versus something else, some other setting, whatever that might be. And you see it time and time again. Like I said, you see it a lot in the adults and the faculty in the academy. You see it a lot. There is a implicit competition for who's done the most when, under what circumstances. And it's embedded in our culture in regards to that. So approval addicts, what is this? Oh, never mind, you already saw So, the never deserving. I don't feel like I ever deserve anything good. Now, that doesn't always come from a message from somebody else. That comes from a conclusion that we have made ourselves. So it's not always at somebody else's doorstep to put this on me. It really is more a matter of the conclusions I make about me from other people. So in a lot of cases, when I believe this, that I really never deserve anything good, then what that translates into is that when I have good, I will sabotage it because of this belief. Because sooner or later, the good will turn bad. It will turn nasty. And so if I'm going to have to face something like that, something bad, I know this is simplistic terms, but if I have to face something bad, then I want to face it on my terms, not somebody else's. And the irony is that the underlying motive underneath there is also very similar to what we find with self-mutilating behavior and self-destructive behavior. Is that if I'm going to have pain, I'm going to be the one to do it. Not somebody else do it to me. I can't control that. So these people are also drawn to the Messiah complex because they want to save other people, and then that becomes, a feather in their cap for having helped people. And so they don't deserve anything good, but everybody else does. And so therefore I'll offer them things that I don't feel like I deserve to have. And that's, really in a lot of ways, the worst part of that is that can be a motivation for ministry. Very much it can be the motivation for ministry. For a number of years, I did it that way. I talked, and I had spent time in talking to Brennan and other people about grace. But if you press me and say, do you believe that? It's like, no, my ship has sailed. I don't really have anything to offer on that front. So I'll just make sure other people get to experience it. And that's the backdrop here of what we're talking about. And ultimately, it's rationalizing as a means of saving people, which is mildly arrogant that I actually have the capacity or the power to do that. And that's the never deserving. Oftentimes, the thing that I see is, particularly in women in abusive relationships, is they go through these string of relationships and it keeps happening over and over again. And they say, I must never deserve anything good. And then when they finally meet somebody to be in a relationship with, and they are truly good, and they are about their freedom and empowering them and all of those sorts of things, they'll find a way to sabotage it. And one of my daughters was very much in that category, and she found a genuinely good guy to hang out with. And I said to her, and I still remember this phone call, and I said to her, just don't sabotage the fact that you have somebody good in relationship. Because it'll be really easy to do because you think you've already decided what you deserve. And so there's testing behavior, there's all sorts of things that kind of go into sabotaging the good in our lives, yeah.
There's a song that I listen to that kind of has this theme in it, where it's like the chorus is pushing all my friends away to see if they still care. Think I'll drink alone my days, got problems I won't share, making something out of nothing, start regretting I even brought it up at all, pushing all my friends away and hoping that they call.
Yeah.
It's like those unspoken expectations while also believing that you don't deserve it.
Yep.
I think that's a good, yeah.
Yeah, and the friends are completely double bound.
Yep.
Because if they call, they're just being nice.
Yep.
And if they don't call, well, at least they came to their senses. Yeah.
And we think about this song, also it's called How to Never Stop Being Sad.
Mm.
It's like Vancouver Sleep Clinic. Basically, it's basically like accepting, like, this is how you never stop being sad. It's like doing all the things on purpose to like push people away and like not accept help
Right.
That song, oh my gosh. If you want to hear something about shame and grace, listen to that song. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not to keep with the song theme,
Good boy.
there's another song, and it's like basically about like the same thing, but it's like talking about like, I'm the one making the bed, like it's talking about like, I guess I've made my bed so I have to sleep in it, like this is what my life is, and I
Right.
hate it, but I made all these choices, so what can I do?
Mhm.
Like, and I feel like it's
Mhm.
kind of that of like, I have a bunch of fake friends,
Yep.
I hate them all, nobody actually cares about me, but I guess it was me, I picked all these friends, so
Yeah.
it's me who made the bed, I have to sleep in it
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
Which I feel like it's,
Yeah. And we wonder why we find shame so comforting. Because we have these internal narratives running. So when somebody's nice, we can negate their niceness or their kindness or anything like that. And it's ironic that the songs you guys are bringing up, poets, if you will, always tap into that strain within us. Because that's really endemic to us as humans, I think, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I can read like 2 lyrics for the song. I feel like it's so spot on.
Well, we're on a roll, so keep it going, Rachel.
But it's not like, it's like, was this a sign that things were going wrong? No, you were the one that cared too hard, not them. And it's like, talk down on yourself whenever possible. My life is shit because I deserve it, right? You must have done something really bad. It's nearly impossible for you to cry now. And then it's like, avoid your friends for weeks even though they're the only sense of consistency you have left in your life. If they really wanted to see you, they'd come, but they won't. Who cares? And then the
Sure.
last two lyrics go, you don't need other people to drive away your loneliness, you just needed to find a way to talk to it. It was like, you fully accepted it,
Mhm.
and you're living in it, but it's like every excuse in the book to like stay in it. And so,
Yeah, yeah, no, it's, and just to add kind of the punctuation point to that, and we wonder why our relationships are so superficial, because we spend all of our time manipulating people to get something out of them that we don't believe is sincere in the first place. And it's like, okay, so we end up settling for a manipulative relationship even though it continues the narrative we've got in our head that I don't deserve anything good anyway. So I win this argument either way, yeah.
I kind of see this as like the people who spend all day boosting other people out of the hole that they dug themselves.
Yeah.
And you're content to just stay in the bottom of that hole,
Mhm.
but you'll always be the one to give someone else the way out.
Yep. At least it's predictable.
It's a nice hole.
Yeah, we'll start papering the sides with artistry and things like that, yeah.
This feels like the never enough type person,
Mm-hmm.
where that word just gets thrown around
Yep.
a ton. I had another song that came to mind.
Oh,
I was telling him about this. I actually made him listen to it earlier. Where the chorus is like, I bet you're just as surprised as I am that they'd ever let a sinner like me in. And I know I didn't do enough watching over you, but I will wait and see you again if you'll let me. It's just that like, yeah.
nothing like self-deprecatory Christianity.
obviously we're all doing really well, these are the songs that we.
I was thinking that, Greta. Yeah.
maybe it was like How to Save a Life by The Frig.
Well, I know it's going to be on my playlist for a while. Okay, let me do one more to stop this in it dead in its tracks. People that are condemned by the memories of the past. You already stopped now, Tori? Is that what that is? Yeah, we're almost done. Yeah. And the funny thing about it is the being condemned by the memories of the past is because I keep replaying them over and over and over again. And that's the foothold for shame. Quite honestly, in the frame of what we just saw with that clip, that is the cell. That is the cell. And so we end up being susceptible to situations in the future that will allow a way to counteract what I've done in the past. And I always end up in this pendulum-like swing from one thing to another, just trying to correct the last thing. And parents are particularly susceptible to this. They see that they made a mistake in their kids, and then they overcompensate in the opposite direction, thinking that that will help. And all it does is it's just an error in the opposite direction, that's all. So parents who are overly authoritarian with their kids, and they recognize what what impact it has had on them, and they turn into being completely laissez-faire. And just kind of whatever goes, goes. You're on your own. So they make the opposite mistake instead of finding the middle ground of what true handling authority authentically actually looks like. Yeah.
I feel like this also can be like one of those things, like can it be one of those things where it's like, because a parent feels like this, it like also can like directly impact the child to like live in that. Like I had a friend the other day tell me, she was like, yeah, the other day I was talking to my mom, she's like grown, she's like 4 or something. She was like, I was talking to my mom and she just said, and I failed as a parent. I can just see it in you guys, I failed as a parent. And she was like, thanks, Mom. I feel great. Like
I was telling a story, right?
yeah, I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like, because like the parent like feels like that, it then like pushes that onto the kids.
Yep.
Even like if it's less direct than that.
Oh yeah.
So then I have to feel shame too, because if they
I've
feel
done. I haven't helped my parent take care of themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, clearly we're done.